Hello, friends. Welcome back. We need to talk. We need to talk about that famous topic, the one we love, the one we obsess over, but also the one we completely misunderstand. Mind power. You know what I'm talking about, the whole just wish for it, send a message to the universe, and wait for Amazon Prime to deliver it to your doorstep kind of thing. Yeah, that. Look, let's get on the same page right from the start. This isn't going to be a session on toxic positivity. We are not playing Pollyanna here. I have some good news, and I have some bad news. Here is the bad news. You cannot simply stand in front of a mirror, look at yourself, and say, I am a millionaire, I am perfectly healthy, I am amazing, and expect your neural networks to just change. The brain isn't that naive, my friends. It doesn't buy it. It knows you're bluffing, but here is the good news. What we believe really does become our biological reality. It physically changes us, but not in the way you think it does. Today, we are going to look under the hood. We are going to look at the engine of this machine we call the brain. We need to understand how that mechanism, if you believe it happens, actually works between the neurons. Because if we don't understand the system, we are just fooling ourselves. You see, we tend to think that the I, the conscious voice listening to me right now, the one making decisions, is the CEO sitting in the corner office. No. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that voice, it's just the press secretary. The real decisions, the life script, your core beliefs, those are all happening in the basement, deep underground. And the press secretary, he doesn't even have clearance to go down there. So today, let's take the elevator down. Let's go to the basement. Are you ready? Now, look at this. Look at the screen, or look at an object in your room, a pen, a cup of coffee. You see it, right? You hear my voice. Let me tell you something strange, maybe a little spooky. None of that is actually happening the way you think it is. Inside your skull, in absolute darkness, in total silence, there sits a piece of wet biological matter, about 3 pounds of flesh. The brain, this friend of ours, has absolutely no contact with the outside world. None. Zero. It doesn't see, it doesn't hear, it doesn't smell. So what is it doing? Electrical signals come from the eyes. Electrical signals come from the ears. The brain takes these signals, checks its massive internal database, and it makes a guess. It says, this signal looks like a coffee cup, and this signal sounds like a human voice. And then it projects a 3D simulation for you, a hologram, and you call that reality? So, my friends, we don't actually know what is out there. We only live the story that our brain tells us. This is exactly where the phrase belief creates reality kicks in. If the master software in that dark room has been coded to believe that the world is dangerous, that people are untrustworthy, and that you are not good enough, then guess what? Your brain will twist every single piece of data from the outside world to fit that story. The best opportunity of your life could walk right in through the door, and your brain will label it as a threat. Why? Because your factory settings are designed for survival, not for happiness. Let's put a pin in that. So, the million-dollar question. Professor, how do we change the software? How do we rewrite the code? Can I just wake up and say, I am a positive person now? No, it doesn't work that way. Our education system, This modern Western world we live in, it invests everything in the top layer, the surface consciousness. We go to college, we memorize facts, we get degrees. We think that knowing something is the same as being it. It's not. I can sit here and explain the dangers of smoking to you until morning. I can draw the neurological damage on a whiteboard. Do you think my doctor friends who smoke don't know this? They know it better than I do. But they still smoke. Why? Because that information has not traveled down to the limbic system. It hasn't reached the emotional brain for information to turn into a belief, and for a belief to turn into reality. It needs to marinate. It needs to brew. Think of it like making a good stew or fermenting something, like brewing a fine tea. Does the water turn into tea the second you drop the bag in? No. You have to wait. You have to let it steep. Transforming the mind is exactly like that. Thinking about it isn't enough. You have to feel it. You have to embody it. You have to experience it repeatedly in real life. Those neural pathways, those dirt roads in your brain, need to be paved into highways. And that takes effort. That takes repetition. And most importantly, it takes emotion. Without emotion, neurons don't wire together. They just don't bond. Now, let's talk about the biggest obstacle standing in your way. Why do we fail? Why do we get stuck? Because of our animal brain, the reptilian brain. It is constantly on high alert. Something bad happens in our lives. What is our first reaction? 1, we complain. 2, we blame someone else. My boss is a jerk. My partner doesn't understand me. The economy is tanking. Inflation is up. Listen to me closely. Complaining is your brain shifting into victim mode. A brain in victim mode cannot solve problems. It is biologically impossible. A victim brain shuts down the creative centers and focuses only on survival. It pushes the responsibility outward. Transformation begins with acceptance. But please, don't misunderstand me. Acceptance is not surrender. It is not saying, well, I guess this is my fate. I'll just lie down and suffer. No. Acceptance is this. Okay, this is where I am. These are the facts. The ground is shaky. Fine. Now, given this mess, what can I do? The moment you ask that question, what can I do? The frontal lobe lights up. The human part of you, the creative part, comes online. When you complain, you are just marinating in stress hormones. Cortisol is eating you alive. Acceptance is not a passive act. It is an active strategy. It is seeing things exactly as they are, stepping out of the illusion. The man who refuses to accept reality is busy fighting imaginary enemies. Okay, Professor, so what is the prescription? What's the pill? I'm going to give you a strange prescription. You need a little bit of aesthetics, a little bit of art, a little bit of awe. We live our lives so mechanically, especially here in the hustle culture. Wake up, grind, commute, scroll through social media, sleep, repeat. In this cycle, the brain goes on autopilot, and a brain on autopilot never changes. You have to shock the system. You have to surprise the brain. Read a poem, but don't just read it. Feel the rhythm. Look at a painting. Look at a Van Gogh. Or listen to a piece of cello music. Listen to the blues. Even if you don't understand art, just look at it. Just listen. Those colors, that harmony, that vibration, it bypasses the press secretary It shuts down that chattering, nagging voice in your head, and it speaks directly to the basement. It speaks to the deep mind, art, music, a deep conversation with a friend where you lose track of time. These aren't luxuries, my friends. These are nutrients for the brain. They are the back doors to your operating system. You cannot change yourself with logic alone. Logic builds walls. Logic defends the ego. But a sunset, a melody, a moment of pure beauty, that tears down the walls and touches the core. Let's wrap this up. Give yourself and your brain some time. Nothing is going to change overnight, not tomorrow morning. But set the intention, plant the seed, and then learn to trust the system. Trust the orchestra. Don't be afraid of the chaos. Don't be afraid of the uncertainty in your life right now. Usually, those are just wake-up calls. You fall asleep in a comfortable chair, but you stay awake on a rocky path. Maybe, just maybe, we need to wake up a little bit. What do you think? The mind is powerful? Yes. But to use that power, you have to silence that ego-driven I behind the wheel and trust the magnificent biological machine, that ancient wisdom operating in the background. Take care of yourself, but don't just groom the image in the mirror. Take care of that dark room inside. Stay curious and stay full of love. See you next time.